Jesse, but when we just get to introduce somebody, I like the excuse to talk. And so I'm going to, believe it or not, once again, get out of the way and turn this over to Daniel Burkhead, who is all things inspections. He's served on committees, he's ran it, he's set up the guidelines, he's done everything. So he, in the middle of his presentation or at any point, if you want to interrupt him and ask him a question, he would love to answer that question. So believe it or not, I'm gonna be quiet and turn it over to Daniel.
I will either answer the question or ask you more questions. So I'm always about facts. We obviously deal in facts. Many of you know me. Some of you don't. Daniel Burkhead, I've been an inspector since 2009, so I've done a couple inspections here and there. I own a multi-inspector company. I got 4 other guys that work for me full time. So there's 4 of us that are inspecting. We've been really busy. We've been very busy. We add stuff all the time, new services that we offer, new education. There's not a whole lot that we don't offer. We can do as far as evaluation and foundation engineers. So we work with an engineering company to do that. So it's kind of a one-stop shop. We tell them everything. We tell the clients, give them as much information as they can to know everything they need to know about the purchase, obviously, because that helps that transaction move to closing, and that's your ultimate goal, right? To get it to closing, because that's when y'all get paid. So we want that to happen. We are a non-biased third party, but we're part of the team, of that whole team that gets this thing done. The appraiser, your loan originator, all these people, y'all, all of that. We're part of that team to make it happen. Most of us don't pull punches on anything. We tell you like it is. Many of my realtors that use me, freaking flyers, I call them, they know I'm gonna tell you like it is. I don't really sugarcoat anything. Anything can be fixed. Some things just cost more than others. That's my favorite line. It's all about how you explain it. So speaking of explaining stuff, Jonathan and Jesse asked me about coming and talking during their Tool Tuesday thing, which I think is a great idea. What do we talk about? I don't know. All right, where to start? For those of you that don't know, I own a home inspection school. I actually teach home inspectors. So we teach this stuff. We do CE credits for the new guys, for the guys that have been inspecting for several years. I've got 40 or 50 every single year that come through my class simply because we want to talk. We want to know what's going on, what's new, what's happening. And the reason I want to do that is, so this is what, June 16th? We've done 403 inspections this year so far, okay, my company, that's it. So we're busy. We got 20 inspections this week, had 21, luckily one canceled, so that means I get Friday afternoon off. So we have a lot going on, but we have a lot going on because we talk to other inspectors and obviously other real estate agents as well. What's needed in the area? That's kind of what we want to know. You know, what's happening, what's going to be happening, what are we looking forward to? You know, how can we increase the knowledge of our client to help them have a better understanding of what they're buying? And really that's what it comes down to. So that's what we're going to talk about. Home inspections and helping clients understand that process, okay? The big thing there to start off with is, if my clicker will work, if I turn it on, it will. Boom. You got to prep for clients, all right? I don't know if y'all can read that. I didn't make it dark enough. That was my mistake. I threw this together this morning. You got to prep your clients. So with that being said, there's some expectations that you want to set early on the process, okay? You're talking to somebody and y'all know more about the process than I do about how it goes when you get your client. You got somebody looking for homes. You're showing them 23 homes a day. The owners are still there with their dogs and everything else, and all this. So you've got to prep the clients on home inspection. Home inspection is a very valuable tool. It's just that though, it's a tool, okay? Like all the other tools, they can be used properly or improperly. So we're going to talk about how to use it properly, okay? Prep your clients. It is not a pass or fail test. It doesn't pass or fail the inspection. I have people all the time ask me at inspection, well, did it pass? Did what pass? It doesn't pass or fail. We're going to tell you the condition of the house at the time of the inspection, all right? What else? It's a visual. It's non-invasive snapshot of the house. So we don't tear drywall out to see what's behind drywall. Had a client one time call me, actually he texted me, it was after they closed, so it was 3 or 4 weeks, he texted me and was blowing my phone up. I was at an inspection, And those of you that had inspection with me know I don't answer my phone when I'm at an inspection. My client's paying for that time. So that's it. I reply with a text. Kept blowing up. Hey, this is the house you done over in Little Rock last month, blah, blah, blah. This is something that should have been found. We got termite damage. So I kind of glanced at the picture. I said, and I replied back, I'll call you as soon as I get done with this inspection. So, look at the pictures he sent me. They got entire drywall taken out. Like, whole room. And I called him. He goes, you should have found this stuff. There was termite damage in this wall. I said, what do you mean there's termite damage? So I sent you pictures. The studs are completely ate up, but the termite guy there said, y'all should have caught this, and the painter said the same thing. I said, okay, well, there's one thing. They don't know what it is. I said, well, two, I'm not a termite guy. You had a termite clearance letter, right? Yeah. I said, did you ask them about that? Because really, that's something they should have caught. We find damage if we're lucky, and we'll call it out, but we don't know what the damage is. But we'll call it out. He goes, well, no, I guess they didn't do that. I said, that'd be the first call I make. Call them, and then if you still think it's on me, call me back. I said, but I will tell you this, I didn't tear your drywall out when I was there, and you were at the inspection, you saw what I done. Because as I go through, I explain what I'm looking at, and so forth. So, the big thing is there, it's visual, non-invasive. So let the clients know, kind of explain what that is that we're gonna be doing. Every house has issues, every house has defects. If you go on social media, follow me for one. If you go on social media, Inspector Dan B, the videos that I've had that have had 1 million, 2 million, 3 million views are new construction houses. Brand new constructions. $750,000 up to 1.2 million, and they all have problems. And some of them you shake your head and think, I'm so sorry. Some of them shake your head and think, why do they even let that pass? And it's just one of those things people don't pay attention to. So the goal is they've got to make informed decisions. That's what a home inspection is for, is to help them make an informed decision about the property. That's all. All right, so what should the clients expect? Well, they should expect photos. They should expect recommendations, all of this stuff within the report. The standards of practice set forth by the state that we all have to abide by, 380 of us, there's not very many of us. We have standards of practice. We have to provide a written report. That written report does not have to have pictures or anything. Just has to be written. That's all. That's a bare minimum. We obviously go above that. We do pictures all the time. I do videos in my reports because you go on WebView, you can actually see videos, and I'll talk through it and kind of explain what I'm seeing, what's happening, what's supposed to happen, or rather not supposed to happen. Okay. Expect safety and maintenance notes. That's the stuff they need to be looking for as well, and it's all safety stuff. We're looking, safety is number one priority, every single house, okay? We wanna make sure it's safe and habitable, and that's kind of where we're going there. That's the stuff they'll find as well. Don't expect perfection. Like I said, every house is gonna have issues. Some houses have more issues than others, all right? There's some older homes I've done that have been 50, 60 years old, or even newer or older, that have less issues than new construction, but it's all about how you go about looking at and explaining it. Oldest house I've done is built 1873 in Hot Springs. So bloom frame construction, very, very cool house. Literally, it was 73 degrees, it was 94 outside, and had no central heating there. So it was a really cool way to design, but that's all other topics. Don't expect the exact lifespan predictions, how long their equipment stuff's gonna last. We're not gonna give that. We're not gonna give you that because it's part of the standards. We don't have to provide that, but it's hard to know. AC may be working one day, we turn around and leave. Listing agent the next day will call, hey, there's no air conditioner working on this house or whatever. And things happen overnight, literally the next day. It can happen as soon as we leave the house. So we don't give, they should not be expecting rather exact lifespan predictions, how long something's gonna last. It's not a guarantee, okay? We'll inspect it. If somebody inspects the house, say in March, they don't move in till June or later or something like that. Things happen in that time frame. I mean, we've had squatters even come in houses and tear stuff up, so you never know. You gotta explain the findings to the clients, okay? You gotta manage those emotions and deal shock, okay, by explaining those. First time home buyers, they often react strongly to this thing. They see a long list of stuff, and they're freaking out already. They're already stressed because they're fixing to make the biggest purchase of their life, and mom and dad's not there to help them, so they're already stressed out. So you gotta manage those expectations. Explain the findings, start with the summary. We have our summaries at the beginning of our reports. I may be moving them to the bottom reports now, but that's another story. Because you gotta explain, these are the items that they find. All of this is not bad. It's typically mostly maintenance items, stuff that needs to be addressed. And y'all know, first time home buyers, we got a little maintenance manual we give them, explains all that maintenance stuff they need to take care of on their own, instead of calling superintendent or mom or dad, whoever. So we kind of help with that. So start with a summary. Focus on the major issues after that, okay? Major issues within that summary. You know, roof needs to be replaced. That's something we probably won't talk about because it's a big ticket item. HVAC, another big ticket item. You know, small cracks here and there, maybe a door doesn't close right, or maybe it swings on its own or whatever. Those are smaller items. So talk about big issues first and kind of walk them through that. Minor issues, minor notes, that's gonna be normal stuff we have at every house. Your own house is like that. Mine's like that for sure. That's why I don't do videos in my house, because I have lots of stuff. Use specialists when needed. So with that being said, when you have something comes up that you don't understand, the first call to make, honestly, or text is gonna be the inspector. Ask the inspector, what are you saying here? What's wrong, or what needs to be addressed? How do we go about fixing it? And several of y'all have done this. You call me, hey, you wrote this up. What does that mean? So the inspector should be the first one to explain that to you, okay? And they should be able to explain it in easy to understand terms so you can relay that to your client. It's all about communication. 95% of the stuff we do is talking to the client, really explain how we explain things. If the inspector doesn't explain it well, then maybe you need to pull in a specialist to look at it, a roofer or a plumber or an electrician or whatever. The inspector's probably already stated that as well, but if you can't explain stuff to the client where they understand, then let's get a specialist in here to look at it. That's what we do. Okay. Add value. So that's out of order, out of my list. So add value. So here, that's what the home inspection does, okay? It's gonna add value to that. There's other ancillaries that come with that too, to give that client more information about the condition of the house at the time of the inspection. Sewer scope, that's a big one. I could name many different instances where that has saved clients thousands of dollars because they got a sewer scope. It's $175 typically, okay? It's cheap for us to do it when we're there. 3 of my guys do that. 1 doesn't, but I've got somebody else who can cover. So we take care of that stuff, and all that is, we run a high definition camera from the house out to the septic tank or out to the main line. And I found roots in main lines. I found main lines that aren't even connected at the city line. This was Stuttgart. Been like that for 40 years, completely eroded and washed out right at the street. Nobody knew about it. What they need to understand when they're considering this is that lateral line coming from the house to the city connection, they're responsible for that entire area, all the way to where it connects to the city. If that goes underneath the road, they're paying for the road. Now it gets tens of thousands of dollars and goes up. So $175, that's a cheap insurance really for them to say, oh yeah, we understand what's going on. Let's get this addressed. Let's ask the seller to do it or whatever. And it saves them money. It adds value to that. Adds value to the agent as well because you're looking out for their well-being. Okay? Same thing with mold and air quality testing. We're adding value to inspection, adding value to what you're offering them as well. Thermal imaging, same thing. And then it just, better information means fewer surprises. Okay? How many of y'all close the deal and they get moved in and you get a phone call? Everybody dreads that phone call, but we've got to take it because we build relationships. We don't just sell houses. In your case, I don't just sell inspections. In my case, I build relationships. I got people still contacting me 2-3 years later. Hey, you wrote this up when we bought the house, but we never got it fixed. What do you think we need to do? We're thinking about selling the house. All right, I'll answer. Don't mind a bit. Who are they going to call when they buy their next house? They're calling me because I'm answering phones. I'm helping them along the way. So y'all have the same aspect, the same way to look at things too. You're building relationships. You're not looking just to sell the house you're doing right now. You're looking to sell a house, buy a house or whatever for their entire family. So, and continuing, it's continual, so. Tom, you've been doing it, what, 45 years? Thereabouts? Yeah.
In November.
Yeah. So, how many single homes have you sold that have ended up being multi-generational after that?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we're building relationships, and that's what this does. Explaining the home inspection, walking through the home inspection, builds that relationship with that client and builds that trust with that client so they'll use you later on.
And you know, Daniel, you were mentioning on this scope and running cameras and so on and so forth, you know, and a lot of people don't realize that, but even when you're just going from the house to the main, and you're not having to cross the road, that's a $4,000 to $5,000 plumbing bill. You know, to dig all that up and redo those lines, that's a $4,000 to $5,000 plumbing bill. And, you know, we don't think about it, but, you know, we sell these homes with all these beautiful trees in the yard. We think this is fantastic, beautiful. But if it's an older home and they've never replaced that sewer line, then we can almost promise you that there's something going on with that sewer line. May not be today, may not be tomorrow. And then the other challenge is to outguess is this person living here is a single person.
Yep.
I'm selling this to a couple with 3 children. And they're gonna be running the dishwasher, washing machine, showers, commodes, sinks, everything a lot more. So what these lines have easily handled and nobody's known the difference for years because it's had time to flow out is not gonna happen now with the amount of water that's gonna be pushed, you know, when this family moves in there. So again, that's just another thought process with having this done. And I'm, you know, and you might not want me to say this, but here goes. It may not be something you want on every home. I mean, you're selling a 2-year-old home, it's in the middle of a field, you can't see a tree for a mile, the house is 2 years old, it's on city sewer. You know, if everything's flushing and draining properly when the inspector's there, you're probably fine. But you just never know on some of the older homes in town where they've got the beautiful big oak trees everywhere that we love.
Cast iron lines.
Clay
lines that have broken or whatever.
You know, downtown Benton businesses spend tens of thousands of dollars redoing those old sewer lines in some of those buildings.
I've done several sewer scopes for businesses in downtown Benton. Burger Shack, for instance, theirs was backing up, couldn't figure out why. They've had their guy out there to take care of it, then it keeps, after a certain period of time, back up again. So I ran a camera through there. And then we found out that the apartments upstairs actually go into the same line. So when they're running dishwasher or washing clothes or whatever, and it's during their busy time, their commode's back up. And once we were getting there able to see this, we can find it.
We've sold 2 different buildings downtown where it was not connected to the sewer.
Really?
I mean, there was a gap as far as me to you where the line had collapsed. So it was just pushing as much
well, and that's the other
water
thing,
and sewer that they could go.
You get a town that has like a lot of maintenance, road maintenance and stuff, where they're coming in putting fiber optic in or all that.
Yeah.
You know, they don't always know when they hit something or don't know. That's just something to think about. During the home inspection, we run water, flush toilets, whatever, but we're not putting, shouldn't be, putting toilet paper down there. I know there's some inspectors that probably do, but we don't do that. And we'll, you know, water, what I explain to my clients, water will flow through roots and stuff just fine. But you start getting solids in there, it ain't gonna have backups. So, last thing on that, flushable wipes are not flushable. Just saying. They don't break down. Yeah. Again, it's really not about getting a perfect house, okay? It's just about minimizing the expectations, knowing the house well enough, understanding the house well enough to make a smart decision. That's really what it's all about. That went a whole lot quicker than I thought it would. Questions about any of it? I know, it was quick, fast, fierce, but really.
How long would you say a typical inspection takes? I mean, obviously, depends on whether the house is 1,000 feet or 7,000 feet.
Right, on average, let's say 2,000 square foot, let's say 2,000 square foot on a slab, within 10 years old. Honestly, it should take, this is my opinion, between an hour to 2 hours, 2.5 tops. It won't take that long.
Do you prefer to be there by yourself? You
Good
can answer that honestly.
Of course.
And I don't mean not necessarily.
it's fine, and
I'm mainly talking about the client.
I absolutely, and I can go both ways. And the reason is because myself, my lead inspector, teach the class, so we're used to teaching. So I take that 2 hours or 3 hours that I have allotted off, and I use that as education time. It's my time with this client to explain stuff they didn't know about. Usually a realtor will learn something during the process.
Sure.
I'll do it to Jesse. Hey, you know this? And I'll explain whatever, the background story. I think I done it to you the other day, explain stuff. But it helps y'all as well when you're looking at houses in the future. You're thinking, oh yeah, this, that, and the other. I like people to be there because, like you, I'm a talker, but I like to explain things as I go. Still, it shouldn't take that long. Now, with my inspectors, my other 3 inspectors, I would prefer the client not to come till the end. The last 30 minutes or so. Let them get the majority of the thing done so they're not distracted. They have been doing it as long as me. They can't inspect, check stuff, look at ceilings, walls, floors, and everything else, and talk at the same time. They feet lock up. They stop. So a 400 square foot cabin, Mount Ida, for instance, last week, 487 square feet. He was there for 4.5 hours.
Good God.
The client was there. I understand. The next day, he had one other side of Conway. That was 3,200 square feet. Hour and a half. He was done. I called him. How'd you get done so quick? Nobody was there? Okay. He's talking. I know he's talking. But not everybody can talk and walk or talk and work at the same time. So it varies. I encourage it, and I tell my clients, I encourage you to come to the inspection. Oftentimes, it's either the time they've seen it, or the second time they've seen it. During the showing, they're pressured. You got a set amount of time for a showing, you're kind of pushing to go through there. During the home inspection, I look at it as their time. They can see stuff maybe they didn't look at before. I'm gonna point stuff out that I know they didn't see before.
And I think the main thing that we as agents, and the great thing about being in this for 45 years is I learn something new every day, is that we've got our biggest job is what you said on the front end, is to cover expectations, and let and those, everybody that's been in here with me for very long at all knows that, you have to find a diplomatic way to say, oh, by the way, you may have an inspector that once you read that report, you're gonna think this house is caving in on.
Oh my gosh.
And I said, you just gotta take a deep breath. It's a beautiful home. You wouldn't have made an offer on it to buy it. We'll work through whatever the inspector says. If we can't work through it, then obviously you don't have to buy the home. But take a deep breath, don't panic until we really talk to the inspector and get to the bottom of this. But we've gotta prepare them. The inspector's not gonna walk out of the house and say, absolutely perfect, nothing to know.
I've never done that, and I've done close to 8,000 inspections.
And they're just not gonna do that, and so again, everybody has different expectations. I had Tim will tell you, I had a tenant the other day that called Tim and said the gate latch on the gate's loose, the screw needs to be tightened. And Tim said, well, I guarantee you Tom Baxley can't tighten a screw. That boy can't change a light bulb, so we're gonna hire somebody. He doesn't have a screwdriver, doesn't want one. But again, we've gotta set up those expectations for them, and they've heard me say this before too. If the inspector comes back and says, hey, it's really great, I just found a minor thing or two, and that's it, it's well built, great place. I love for the client to say to us, I told y'all it was a better house than what y'all, I mean.
Yeah.
I want them to be the hero in that.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But again, I think that's what we've gotta continue, not that we don't do a good job of it now, but I think that's what we've gotta continue to do a better job, is to prepare them of what this is. And lastly, you mentioned it earlier and hadn't touched on it since, but inspectors also put a lot in there about maintenance. You're looking at this home like everybody's a first-time home buyer, or maybe they're not a first-time home buyer, but they take things for granted, and that's what the issue with their home, they're not doing normal maintenance.
Right.
And so you also try to put in there, as most inspectors do, some things that we need to do for maintenance. I mean, you know, we go and get our oil changed on our cars because we've been told that forever, and we see that advertised forever, and we know if we don't, that one day it's gonna burn up and cost us a lot of money. Other than that, we know absolutely nothing
Right.
about that motor,
Right.
nor do I want to, but anyway. So that's the same thing with your home. You know, if you're not regularly changing filters and taking care of this and doing this and that and the other, just minor things. then
The
you're
way
gonna have
I,
issues.
the way I explain it to people is preventive maintenance is a very low-cost way to prevent higher costs later on. And that's simply how I put it. That's why I give, you know, first-time home buyers or people that ask, the book about home maintenance, how to take care of that stuff. Tom, you did mention one thing about, when somebody calls with something and you said, let's talk to the inspector about that. That's an excellent point. And I mentioned that earlier, is we're part of the team that y'all have to make that to closing. Tell you a story of two realtors, two different transactions, all happened to me. One client told the realtor, hey, where there seems to be a water leak in here, we got some water damage in this condo, what do we do? The realtor literally told them, well, your inspector should have called that. And that was it. Didn't guide them through or nothing. So they called me. Of course, they were hot when they called me, but I calmed them down really quick. I said, first off, let me come over and take a look at it. Because that's what the inspector's job should be. If it's something that we missed, we should say, oh yeah, definitely should have missed that. But if it is a certain set of predicaments or whatever, we may not have seen it, you know, we're gonna explain that and kind of explain why. And what can we do about this? And we'll guide them through, what's your next step? What do we need to do? You already closed on the house, you know, let's get somebody in here, cut it open. And a lot of times we'll help do that. So kind of help them guide the way. The other one, realtor, this was actually a couple weeks ago. The client called the realtor, hey, we just closed on the house, such and such happened. That should have been caught, you know, by the inspector. And the realtor said, well, hang on now. Tell me again what it was, and got the details. He goes, you realize they don't like cut drywall out and stuff, right? They don't like move things. If you remember, the house was packed full of stuff. It's a pack rat, we saw that yesterday. They couldn't see this. So it's not really on the inspector there, but let's work through it and get it worked out to call the inspector. That's the next step. So keep us in that loop. Don't just throw us under the bus, because we're not gonna do that to y'all, ever. Y'all have a job to do, and we don't know what that is. And honestly, I don't wanna know. I'll let y'all deal with that. I know my job, and that's what I try to excel at. So keep that inspector in the loop. But the biggest thing there is just talking to the client, explaining to them, know what, like Tom said, what to expect with a home inspection. It's not a pass or fail. You're gonna have a list of stuff. A lot of it's gonna be maintenance, it's not gonna be a big deal. Most of the time, we're not looking at cosmetic items. I don't care if the wall's scratched. 9 times out of 10, they're gonna paint when they come in anyway. Okay? I'm looking beyond that. We're looking at stuff that's gonna cost them money or a safety issue later on. Okay?
And we always say too, if there's a cosmetic issue that you wanna deal with as part of this negotiation, then we need to deal with it in the contract.
Absolutely.
You know,
And correct me if I'm wrong, now your repair addendum is not just the stuff that's found on the inspection. It can be anything you're asking for, right?
Sure.
Cosmetic stuff. And that's what I tell them. I say, if you're gonna put something in there, great. I've told agents before that. It don't
But
have
if
to be just what I've got on the inspection.
But if it's visual and we know it when we're showing a home, and the buyer just constantly talks about, well, they would have to paint this room, it's just nasty, or blah, 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 then that needs to be a part of the offer.
Absolutely.
But we don't need to wait for the inspection, or, I mean, I even tell people, look, if you see a window pane that's broken, you know, somebody's lawnmower hit it or whatever, then put that down. You know, I mean, mark that on there, that you want the seller at the seller's expense to replace window in front bedroom that's cracked. You know, don't wait on the inspection. I mean, for something obvious to you, let's go ahead and get that negotiated, because we already know about that. That's not what the inspection's for. It's for those things that you haven't been talking about that you can't see.
Right.
And I think this right here is a great sheet to be used by us to, talking points for us to go over with our clients.
Exactly.
You know, I just think there's a lot of these things right here that, you know, a lot there's a lot of stuff to cover in our profession, from financing to this to whatever, and don't be too proud to think you're supposed to have all this in your head. These talking points, anytime I don't have something like this with me and I step away from a client, I think, oh my gosh, I can't believe I didn't talk to them about this and this. You know, but it's because I didn't have my little bullet points, you know, to use, and this is a great tool for that, and just reminding us to go over the explanation with them of what to expect and what not to expect.
And the inspection, if you think about it, inspection is a very big deal of the whole transaction. The longest paragraph in your entire contract deals with that inspection.
Yeah.
So it's obviously important. I mean, it covers both you and us and the client, but it keeps everything above board. So it's obviously a big deal.
And this termite thing behind the sheetrock, you know, termite companies will tell you also that they can't, how are they gonna know that?
Right.
But however, the two that we've been involved in, where, you know, family sat down to have dinner that night and their 10-year-old boy leaned back in a chair, fell into sheetrock and the whole wall, you know, just kind of broke up into particles, didn't hurt anybody.
Right. But they're already.
But the termite company took care of all that.
Yeah.
Termite company took care of all that, re-sheetrock, repainted, you know, took care of all that, because again, that's, you know, their job is to stop those termites before they get there.
Yeah. We had one, Jesse and I actually had one, where I called out some wood destroying organisms. I don't say termites because there's like 5 different types of wood destroying organisms. I don't know which one's which. I called them out, and the termite guy was, he jumped all over us and like, you can't be doing that. I didn't. I just said there was there.
He doesn't need to be looking for stuff.
He doesn't be looking for stuff like that.
What do you want him to look at?
It was on a fascia. I mean, it was obvious, but anyway.
I have a question. Anything coming down the pipe as far as different regulations, or how you guys are having to start to look at things differently or explain things differently on a report? Anything like that coming down that might benefit us?
Honestly, I don't know. The board does not talk to us at all hardly. And I say that both from the educator side and the home inspector side. They change the rules or the statutes, and we find out after the fact.
Do they change those annually?
Sometimes they change them monthly.
Okay.
I mean, it just, yeah. For the most part, no, the standards of practice is pretty much the same.
Okay.
What they are changing, they're changing stuff like, timeline on when your education requirements have to be done, and it just, stuff that doesn't matter.
Yeah, I didn't know if there was something big coming
Not
down or
really, no.
anything
If
like
there
that.
is, I'll definitely let you know, but I'm usually, unfortunately, one of the last ones to find out. All of us are. So they consolidated us 4 years ago. They done away with the home inspector licensing board, which is what I was over. They disbanded us and put us underneath the appraisers and abstractor boards. Because in the words of the bureaucrats on the Hill, we all do the same thing. So,
Is there gonna be more involvement with you and the appraisers,
as far as,
or is you inspecting the home and the appraiser inspecting the home, going back to?
no, are there appraisers out there that think they're inspectors? Absolutely.
What Greg's referring to, I believe, is we had Rick Bertram here last week,
Yes.
and in the appraisal world, they're getting encouraged, it's a better word than pushed, they're getting encouraged to, really look while they're there and recommend,
Point things out.
Exactly.
point things out that
As
need
an
to be
inspection.
done, that are obvious to them, because supposedly the mortgage world is wanting to take more into consideration to give you a better value for your home that you've updated, fixed up, new appliances, done everything to, remodeled the bathrooms, versus somebody that hasn't. Just because both your homes were built in 1990 and they're both 1,800 square feet, they're not gonna be the same value if I've put on a new roof and done this and the other. So they're pushing these appraisers to find out what's the age of the roof, what's the age of the HVAC, you know, to find out some of those things. I don't know how they're gonna do that, other than an owner telling you and you taking the owner's word for it.
I don't either. I've run across some inspectors or some appraisers who literally think they're inspectors, and they'll write stuff up. They'll look at stuff that they really have no business even looking at. And I'll ask the appraiser, abstractor, home inspector board, where's the line? Because we have our job, and we don't put a value on anything. We don't do any of their jobs. So how much of our job are they gonna try to do? Because sometimes we don't agree. The reason we don't agree is because we've seen thousands and thousands of them that actually know what we're looking at and have the education to back it up,
Absolutely.
and they don't. Most of the time it has to do with structural issues.
Yeah.
Most of the time, but I'm fine. Well, there's crack in that brick veneer wall. Right, but did you look at the foundation wall? No. You know what I'm talking about. There's no foundation issues with that. I know for a fact because I was in the crawl space and looked at the foundation wall, as well as the other two inspectors.
Yeah,
that came
it's
over.
it was a poor
But he
mortar,
doesn't
it was a poor mortar job,
Yeah.
period.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, there's a lot of gray area there, that is very turbulent, and I don't know where the line is.
Have you ever had an appraiser ask for your home inspection?
Ask for a home inspection?
Okay.
Never have.
I wonder if that could be coming down.
Let's hope not.
I don't think so, because if they did that, they're going to have to change some statutes.
Because that's the buyer's home inspection.
The buyer bought that, they paid for that home inspection.
Right.
Legally, we don't have to give that home inspection to anyone, except that buyer.
Yeah.
We don't have to give it to the agent. We do most, except for three. I've had three instances where the client said, I don't want the agent copied on my report. And it was the same
Thank God.
agent. It was years ago, it's all been you, every time. And I asked him, I said, why? We just don't think he needs to have it. Okay. Well, you know, he's the one negotiating on your behalf on this stuff. Yeah, but I don't want him to have it. Okay. Anyway, it's just, it's odd. So I don't know that is anything.
I don't know if that's gonna be coming down or not.
You know,
I'm hoping to go to a board meeting in the next couple of months. I just haven't had a chance because we've been covered. And I can ask some of these questions. Shoot me a text, remind me, and I will ask. Cause I want some clarification on some stuff.
Yeah.
Which, when they write up foundation stuff, that actually works out really good for me because I've got a structural solution division of All Star Home Inspection, so we can go do that, okay? But if I did the inspection on that house and I didn't write up any foundation stuff, major foundation stuff, because there wasn't in this particular case, now it makes us look like we don't know what we're talking about.
Sorry, I got a little carried away.
All right, anything else?
I'm covered.
Jonathan, any questions? You missed the first part of it.
You just go to the
Thanks
top.
for being on time.
Yeah.
I got this
Just
for
run
you.
from the top.
You can have one of these. Thank you very much.
Here is the greatest thing about being in the real estate profession, of what we do every day. You don't have to know anything about anything mechanical or any of that to a home. And that's not what your client's looking at from you. And even if you are very talented in that area, we don't want you to go through that with your client. We want them to get that from a home inspector. You know, and many of you have heard me tell the story before. I had a person that worked with us that grew up in the heat and air business, been in the heat and air business forever. He knew more about heat and air than anybody I've ever met. And I said, don't you ever dare breathe a word of that to a client you're out there walking around with. Because you let the home inspector, I mean, if you know that there's an issue with this heat and air system, you know beyond a shadow of a doubt, you might can say, I'll let you say as much as, oh, by the way, if it were me, I'd probably get that heat and air checked out a little more on this property. It may have some issues, I'm not sure, and then stop.
Right.
Don't start talking to them about
As
all that
soon
other
as you
stuff.
start talking like you know that you are considered an expert, therefore you're liable.
Exactly.
And really, that's what it can, and we teach the same thing in class, because we've got guys come through class that are HVAC guys, they're electricians. Scott, my lead inspector, is an electrician, but he knows which hat he's wearing when he does an inspection. So we tell him, just because you know all this, you're there to do a home inspection. So this is what we need to talk about. Anything above that, you're opening yourself up. It really comes down to liability.
Maybe a dumb question, probably.
Never a
question
dumb
for-
question.
Never, you know?
Probably a question for the plumber, but when you're doing an inspection, do you test the water pressure to see, could you possibly see if a regulator valve is malfunctioning or it's bad or something like that? My neighbor had this problem yesterday. And
Yes and
she
no,
said
it
the plumber-
depends.
She said the plumber tested it at the outside water hydrant and, said that it was, that it was 150 instead of 40. And I'm like, okay.
That's a good point. get
What-
that in a second.
What happened?
So.
Yeah, well, you know what happened to her, busted loose.
Yeah, exactly. Well,
Bathroom sink
faucets
flooded her house.
faucets are only rated for 90 PSI. On average, they're rated for 90 PSI. That's why our residential water pressure is between 60 and 80 all the time. However, we don't test water pressure. We're not required to by standards. Some inspectors do. We don't, and this is why. Because if I tell someone, they say, well, how's the water pressure? You got 55 PSI, that's good. They don't have a clue what that means, not a clue. So I explained this to a client yesterday in Sherwood, the way we test that, we turn everything on in the house. Flush toilets, look at the shower head. Does that shower head stop? Does it dribble? Does it still keep spraying? Yeah, well, you've got good enough water pressure for what you do. How often is somebody gonna live in the house and turn on everything in there at once? Everything. I'm not talking just one bathroom. I'm talking every bathroom, kitchen, dishwasher going. It's not gonna happen.
Yeah.
$4,000.
My 6-year-old.
But they're not gonna turn everything on at once.
Oh, yeah,
and
they
do
don't.
it.
But you have to watch it run.
If they're not a Baxley, they're not gonna do that. And that's how we check it. So in that case, the pressure regulator actually did fail. That's why the pressure had increased, okay? But yes, it will damage faucets and stuff, which obviously she knows.
Flooded her house.
And everybody's different,
Everybody's
different about pressure.
Absolutely.
You know, I've been in some homes where people were complaining about pressure and I turned it on and I thought, what's wrong with that?
Looks good, yeah.
You know, but everybody's different.
Everybody's different. My plumber, this last house that I built, I've been in it for 7 years now. My plumber did put a pressure regulator on my house, coming into my house. My shop that I lived in while I was building had a pressure regulator, because I know the difference. I know what it's supposed to do. So I had 120 PSI. Great water pressure. You even told me too, you got awesome water pressure, 120 PSI. I said, Chris, you gotta put a regulator on there, man. I ain't gonna replace the faucets every 5 years.
Yeah.
All right, but I sure do like that pressure. I said, yeah, but I want it to last.
Yeah.
So I still have good pressure, just not 120. So anyway, any other questions, comments, concerns, questions? Okay. If you do have any questions, most of you know how to get a hold of me, and I thought I had something up here, but apparently I don't.
I think they've got,